All right, so welcome back to chapter 11, where we actually take a look at how easy it is to use Intuit's payroll services to pay for our employees, okay? So in this case, right, if you remember, they used one of the payroll services that was offered. So if you remember in chapter 10, I told you that there was 3 of them, right? There was basic, assisted, and enhanced, okay? So in this case, in this very specific file right here, we are taking a look at a sample file of using the basic Intuit payroll services, right? To help us process our payroll, to calculate and crunch our numbers for us automatically, right? All we have to do is just check a few things, such as make sure that the tables are updated, right, with the correct numbers, and making sure that when we are processing the payroll, what we need to ensure is the employee's timesheet correct? Is that information correct? So then we can go ahead and proceed. So again, if you're following along with me, you need to use PR Processing 21, okay? It will give you this little window saying that this is a sample file of the paid services. So again, on last week, I showed you there are 3 types of payroll services, right? Basic, enhanced, and assisted, all right? And how do you activate that? If you don't already have it on, this window right here will say that you'll have a payroll center. But in this case, if you want to learn more, you go to your employees window here and you go to payroll services and so on and so forth, okay? All right. But in this case, because we already have it on and we're looking at a sample file, the next portion is now we're going to see what we have to do, which is going to be paying our employees and then paying for our liabilities and then what happens when we file our forms, okay? So this is using an automated payroll service, okay? It's a subscription that you have to pay every single month to Intuit, okay? And also later on, after we finish this, at the end of the chapter, I'm going to show you the difference between using an automated service versus actually doing a manual payroll services. Because in this case, you can do manual payroll, okay? So again, before, if you are the person that's in charge of payroll itself, you're the HR, human resources, you're responsible to distribute paychecks and so on and so forth, collect pay, timesheets and things like that, the W-2s, W-4s, whatever it is, right? If you're responsible for paying for the employees, these are the necessary steps that you should be taking every single time. Now, depending on how frequent your payroll is, so if it's most common one is bi-weekly or weekly, right? On the 15th or 30th of the month. In this case, every single paycheck you need to review and go through every person's paycheck, okay? You need to verify that the taxes tables are correct, obviously, to calculate the correct tax. And of course, you need to create a review and correct any necessary mistakes. And last but not least, you need to print paychecks and pay stubs, okay? Just so that you can verify that your year-to-date information is correct, okay? And of course, every time you have to do a payroll tax deposit, a great way to ensure that you made your payment on time is check when the payment due date is. Okay, so if you remember, we set all of our payment due dates to be done every quarterly. Okay, All right, and making sure that we do create those extra liability reports just to ensure how much liabilities we've paid already, but also to ensure how much liabilities we've collected, or yes, collected so we can pay. Okay? And of course, every quarter, right, you're gonna do, verify once again the accuracy of all payroll. So again, every quarter you should run through your numbers just to make sure that there was no mistakes here and there. Okay. And when you modified a person's paycheck, making sure that when you modify it, that you modified the taxes that were along with it, and so on and so forth. Okay. And of course, you're gonna do some payroll reports because it's every quarterly, and so on and so forth. And of course, at the end of the year, you're just gonna make sure that you process your W-2 forms, okay, and your 1099s if they need to. All right, so you can give them the employees the W-2 forms as well as the 1090s, okay, 90 forms, okay, and also you're going to be filing the form 941, 940, and 943, okay, just so you can process your tax at the end of the year. Okay. So these are all standard lists of things that you have to do as an HR. Okay, it's with a payroll services. It makes it that much more easier to process paychecks a lot quicker and a lot more easier. Okay. All right. So now let's go ahead and use the employee center and so on and so forth and introduce you to the payroll center. Okay? So if you remember last week when I showed you the employee center, there were only 2 tabs in the employee center, right? You have the employees, then you have transactions. Now, if you paid the Intuit for a payroll service, you will get a 3rd tab that says payroll. Okay, so this right here is your, let's go to pay employees. This right here is your payroll scheduler. Okay, so when you have multiple people who are on different payroll schedules, this is what it means to use the payroll scheduler. Once you set it up, that you should see it right here when you need to pay for them. Yes.
Do we have access to set up this?
To set up the
This
payroll scheduler,
mm, I only have employees and the transportation. The payroll one, are we able to access that?
you might not be in the right file.
No, I have the right file.
You,
Also, is that that's a yes? I am supposed to be able because I wasn't able to get this part, but I am supposed to. So if so, I need to keep working on it.
yes, did you open up the correct file? It's payroll processing, not payroll setup.
Correct.
This isn't a continuation of chapter 10.
This is chapter 11, right?
This is chapter 11.
And it tells you in the beginning which one to start with, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's what I did. But I don't have this payroll one. I have the
It's
employee, I have the transportation one, but I don't have the one that you're talking about right now. Do we turn that on or something, or only you have access to that?
no, so the payroll processing file is a sample file. So you should have it when you open up the file.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So it's a sample file of paying into a payroll service. So in this case, if you do not see it, then you're not in the correct file.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So best indicators. Look at the very top of your window. What is it? What file are you on? Okay. So in this case, the payroll center only appears if you pay into the payroll service. Okay? If you do not pay into the payroll service, this does not exist. It will not appear. All right? So again, this is a new feature. It's like an attachment to the program because you paid into a service. So yes, so this will not show up if you do not have it. But in this case, this is a sample file where they're saying, hey, I'll show you what it's like to sample the payroll service. Okay?
So we need to create one, or like we just read it? We can't practice.
Yes, that's what the purpose of the student protocol files is for you to practice this exact thing.
Oh, if we don't have it in the top, I have just the homepage and have inset, but I don't have this the payroll. How do I add it?
Okay. We're on the employee center, okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, we're on the employee center. So if you click the employee center,
Employee center.
it should be at the top of the employee center. I'm not on the homepage.
Okay.
Okay, so you have 3 tabs instead of 2. So payroll center. This right here is your payroll scheduler. Okay, this is what shows you all of the employees that you have to pay on the different time frequencies. So if you pay someone that's on a bi-weekly payroll and someone who is on a semi-monthly payroll, right? Then right here, because if you assign them a specific schedule, this is where you can actually see the people that you have to pay and when you have to pay it and for you to pay it on time. Okay? So again, the payroll center, right, will have 3 more tabs. It will have the pay employees tab, the pay liabilities tab, and it will have the file forms tab. Okay? Now with the files forms tab, as you notice, you see this window here. Because you are using the basic payroll services, you do not get the file forms feature. Okay, this one you would have to manually do it yourself because again, QuickBooks is primarily used to help you file taxes. So filing forms is part of filing taxes. So you may need to have a actual tax accountant professional to be able to help you fill out the forms. So hence the reason why you would have to pay for a more expensive payroll services. So if you go ahead and purchase enhanced or assisted, you will have the ability to file the forms. Okay, but today we're just looking at the very basics of what you can do because we only have 2 employees. So all we necessarily need to do is just be able to pay our employees and pay our liabilities. We don't need to necessarily know how to file forms. Okay. So let's see what the first example is. So once you have the payroll services on, so you have a few ways that you could access this, right? If I go ahead and whoops. If I go ahead and access my payroll services, right? I have 2 ways I could be able to access the payroll center, right? It's either I go through the employee center or I can click right here on my home page, payroll center. Okay. And if you don't have this, it should say turn on services. Now, again, you're not supposed to be paying for anything on here. This is a sample file that you're supposed to already have, and it's supposed to give you a sample file. Okay. So if I go to Payroll Center, it's just going to take me to that same exact window that I just was on, which is the Employee Center, which is the extension of the Employee Center. Okay. So now the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and pay my employees, okay? But before you want to pay for your employees, right? The first thing you have to do is make sure that your tax tables is correct, all right? What are the tax tables I am looking for? So, in this case, right? If we're looking at 2021, 2022, right? You need to be able to go to the irs.gov and look up the publication 15T, okay? Which is going to be this little form here, right? That allows you to see all the tax tables that are meant for payroll taxes. So here you go, federal income tax withholdings methods, and this is your payroll tables, okay? So this is you can download this on irs.gov, okay? So let's go ahead and go through which table you need to have. In this case, right, you're looking to have this table right here, which is going to be for automated which is this one right here. For using automated payroll systems, okay? Automated payroll systems. So that means if you're using an application, whether it's QuickBooks, Peachtree, or whatever kind of software to be able to process payroll, you have to use this one, okay? There's different ones for different methods that you're going to be using, and this is for if you're using something that's going to crunch the numbers for you automatically. So this is what the table looks like. You'll have it by 2022. There's two types of tables here, because one is for the W-4 form that was created that your employees can submit from 2019 and earlier, and then there's one for the new 2020 and later, which in this case for you guys, when you guys do apply for a new job, you guys will be using the W-4 form for 2020 and later, which has a lot more extra details than it is for 2019 and earlier, okay? They eliminated using withholdings, but in this case, so when we're looking at the 2020 W-4 form, right, it's actually in terms of annual income versus per paycheck, right? So this is the table that you would need to obtain, and you need to make sure that it matches or that when you do run your numbers, that if you do know the calculations, just to make sure that this is the correct numbers that they are using, okay? All right, so then now let's go ahead and actually start processing our payroll for our employees, because after we ensure that we have the proper tables, right, now we can actually start crunching the numbers and be able to process our payroll. So the very first thing is we're going to attempt to pay our employees, okay? So we go to the Payroll Center, right here we are. We click the first tab right here that says pay our employees. And in this case, right, we have we're going to process December 16, 2019. We're going to process that payroll. So in this case, it's using the 2019 payroll taxes, so it's going to look slightly different. But in this case right here, it already showed me that, well, if you have it activated, you should have the little calendar here. And it's going to kind of give you an idea of when you paid your employees and when the next time you need to pay them for. So in this case right here, it's telling me that today is the 16th, and we're going to pay our employees. So how do I pay them? Well, you could click here and be able to click schedule payments, okay? you can simply go to pay employees on my homepage, right? You can even go to employees, okay, and pay employees, right, on the menu bar. Any way that you could get to the the employee center, right? You go to payroll center, and then you can pay your employees there, okay? In this case, yes, you even have the option to pay your employees at the top up here, right? Okay, so once we are going to go to access our payroll center and we're going to pay our employees, right? If I go ahead and click schedule, this window's going to pop up. So when you click on pay employees, this window's going to pop up. This is where it's going to list out all of your employees because today's the date that we're going to pay them, right? So let's double confirm throughout our list of individuals. Yes, you can select which individuals you need to pay. If not, then select them all. Okay? You're going to determine what the end of the period date is going to be. So payroll period ends on the 15th of December. And the paycheck date's going to always usually be the day after. So in this case, it's going to be the 16th of December. Okay? And it's coming out of your checking account. So it tells us that we have $82,000. So plenty to pay our employees. Now, other things that you want to see here is, do you want to print the paychecks on actual check stock, or do you want to hand over or hand write them yourselves? In this case, so you can hand write checks, but nowadays, if you have and buy the actual paycheck stock and you actually printed it at the office yourself, then you can go ahead and select this one that you're going to print those checks. Okay, so once we have that, now we need to verify that my employees are correct. So in this case, I'm going to start with Katie's first. So what I have to do is I click on Katie's name, right? And now her information, her timesheet, all of her information pops up. So in this case, right, this is her compensation at the top. Okay. Over here on the right here gives us all the details in regards to all the deductions, all the taxes, and then it lists all the way down to the bottom where it says our net pay is. Okay. So in this case, we started out with her earnings, okay, her gross pay right here. We have to take money for her 401k. We have to take money for her Medicare, medical insurance. Then we also have to do federal income tax withholdings. We have to do Social Security. And of course, Medicare, which we'll talk about what these percentages are. And of course, if there's California tax, depending on what state that you are in, this will be subjective, okay? So in this case, she earns $2,500, and at the end of paying off all the taxes and paying off all the deductions, her net pay is going to be $1,820. Okay, so she paid almost $700 worth of taxes. Okay. And then right here on the left, this is the deductions that we provide our employees. So any benefits or deductions is going to be listed right here. And then down below here is going to be what our responsibility is for having employees. So this is what we have to pay for as a company, right? We need to match their FICA, which is their Federal Insurance Contribution Act. So that means we have to also pay in Social Security and Medicare, right? We also have to pay state unemployment. We have to pay federal unemployment and anything extra, such as workers' compensation, right? So that's what we have here is we have federal unemployment, state unemployment, and we even have the Social Security and Medicare. And because we agreed to also match her 2% for the 401k plan, there it is. It says right here, match 401k. Now, in this case, right, Katie has also claimed some vacation hours, right? So how do we modify this to add in any information that we did not obtain from the timesheet? Now, in this case, right, if you notice that on the home page, the timesheet is actually eliminated. But here's something that you do not know, or I guess now you know now, is by default, you do not need to do anything more, okay? Because all you need to do is, if you activate timesheets, it will automatically transfer and put it into your employees' payroll. So then when you pay your employees, it's going to automatically pull that information in here. In this case, I have my entered time off. So that means there's no timesheet available for me to have to put in here. So in this case, I would have to manually overwrite, or in this case, I have to add in her salary vacation hours, okay? So in this case, how many hours did Katie do? Because she's a salary-based earnings, right? She doesn't technically have hours to collect. But in this case, what she can do is, because she is going to be having vacation, now we have to adjust it based on hours. Okay, so in this case, she's going to have 85 hours of actual salary regular, and then she's going to have 3 hours of vacation. So let's take a look up here. So here's our compensation, right? We have hourly or salary regular. What we're going to do here is we're going to add another one, which is going to be salary vacation. So again, you can add as much details as it is here. Now notice this. It's telling me that once I added that in here, it split it in half, okay? And no, we do not want that to be like that. So what we're going to do here is, under hour, we're going to say she did 85 hours of regular work, and she did 3 hours of vacation. And what's going to happen here is QuickBooks is going to calculate it with you automatically. It's going to split this. It's going to take the 2,500, right? Because I said that she earned 88 hours. It's going to divide that by 88. So that's going to give you an hourly rate. And it's going to multiply it by how many hours she claimed. So in this case, that's exactly what it did. We didn't have to calculate ourselves. In this case, QuickBooks already automatically did that for me. So in this case, because she is a salary earnings, right? That has no effect on anything whatsoever, because again, her amount that she earns is 2,500. But let's say we give her a bonus, or we do a commissions, or let's say she did overtime, right? She earned extra hours beyond her required hours, right? Then you can go ahead and add it in here, saying maybe she did a bonus, okay? Maybe she did commission, so bonus, right? And then you could just tack it on there, and it will go over the amount of 2,500. But in this case, no. Yes.
Does this mean that she used 3 hours of vacation?
Correct. When we gave her the maximum of 80 hours, right? Yes.
So she used vacation hours.
Correct.
Oh, it doesn't mean that she earned these 3 hours for the pay period. No.
No. Yes. So if I said earned, yes, that's what I meant, is that she did use up 3 hours for vacation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then there you go. Now, because again, she's a salary-based earnings, right? She claimed 3 hours are vacation hours. So in this case, that is what she'll look like. It will look like right here. Okay. And all the numbers are configured for you because we paid into the payroll services. It's meant for the purpose of calculating all this information. So again, if you think about it, right? All the information that we put into Katie's profile, right? We put in her W-4 form, right? So it pulled all that information and it tailored it to this right here. Now I'm going to show you what I mean when you look at a W-4 form, right? And you have to determine the total amount of withholdings, okay? So in this case, that's exactly what I mean here in terms of the way that she is looking or how to calculate federal income tax withholdings, right? All of these numbers were tailored from the actual W-4 form, and it does this automatically for you, okay? But of course, you need to fill in the employee's profile, right? That's the first thing you need to do is collect all the information from the employee so you could properly tax them, okay? So in this case, there you go. I don't have to look through her profile. I don't have to double check what bracket she belongs into. In this case, it's done for me automatically. Okay. All right. And then now let's take a look at the next one. So once everything looks good, so this is where you have to confirm every paycheck period, right? You need to confirm, are their hours correct? Are the numbers that we have here correct? Okay, is the amount of taxes that the company has to pay for correct? And is it correct to the year to date? So the year to date is where it collects the information for after every paycheck. Okay. So once that looks good, then we can go ahead and click next. Okay. So there you go. Then we have Mike. Okay, Mike Mizuki, right? He claimed he has $24 per hour, and he claimed a total of 80 hours. Good. All right. So in this case, he does get 401k, and he does get medical insurance. So therefore, but in this case, right, he might be at a different and higher tax rate. So as you can see, federal income tax withholdings for Mike is $300 versus Katie was only $170. That's just because he probably filed as single status without any withholdings. So again, yes, the W-4 form is very important, especially when you're dealing with your employees and paying them. But there you go. So once everything looks good, you can go ahead and click Save and Close. Okay? So once you get to this window now, I need to go ahead and process my payroll. So I'm going to go ahead and click Continue. Once everything looks good, right, I verified that this is correct, right, because it gives me an overall saying this is their gross pay, this is their taxes, this is their deductions, this is their net pay, and so on and so forth. Okay, so once everything looks good, right, I'm going to go ahead and click Create Paychecks. So you should get 2 beeps of approval, okay? And once you get that, the next step is actually printing out your paychecks. Now, let me tell you this. You are not to ever use the write a checks function. Paying an employee is separate than paying a vendor. And that's what is very specific about QuickBooks is no, you cannot use a write a checks window to pay for an employee. So if you do use the write a checks window to pay for an employee, it will stop you with an error message saying, if you need to pay an employee, use the payroll center and use the pay employees section. Okay, because this is not going to be formatted the same way as a regular check. Okay. So here you go. So now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to print my checks. If you do not get this window or you cancel it at any given time or just close it, you can always print the paychecks by going to File, Print Forms, and then Paychecks, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click Paychecks. Okay, so now we're going to actually print our paychecks. So here you go, checking. what check numbers are we going to use? It says we're going to start with 6069. Okay, so there we go. 6069 is going to be for Katie. 6070 is going to be for Mike. And I'm going to click OK. So again, what's the number one rule that we need to have? Well, we need a signature, right? So that's the first thing I'm going to do is find a signature. Okay, or I can manually, right, create the signature. Okay, so here you go. Or I can actually, if the boss is in the office, then you can go ahead and have the signature there. So there's a signature. I click OK. Now, if you remember when we were talking about this in chapter 4, what are the 3 different types of printing styles, okay? So again, when you go buy the check stock, there are 3 of them that are available, right? You have the kind where it's voucher style, which gives you your pay stub information at the very, very top, and then down below is a perforated line for you to tear your check out and deposit it to your bank. Okay, this is the more common one that is used. Okay, now if you want to save some money in regards to that, you can also do the second one, which is standard, right, where you can print a whole bunch of paychecks onto one sheet, right, and you tear them out, and then you put them in an envelope with attached printed on a regular piece of paper their pay stub information. Okay, and of course, if you do wallet style, it's the same thing as standard, except it's just smaller. Okay. In this case, the best way to do the printing for this is going to be voucher style, because you get the payroll pay stub information at the top, and then down below is the actual check itself. Okay, so once everything looks good, I'm going to click OK. And in this case, because I am printing a digital copy, I'm going to save this right here in AM QuickBooks. And I'm going to say this is payroll for 12/16/19, okay? So now that I have that digitally printed, it's going to give me this window to ensure that I did write these checks, and I say okay. So then you're still at this window. I'm going to close it because I'm done with it. So then now when I go to my payroll center, now it tells me the next time you need to pay something, it's going to be for January 1st, for December 31st. Okay? Any questions on how to pay employees?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at my check register to see, because in this case, right, this says savings. I need to go to checking. So notice this. Now my paychecks, it literally says right here, paycheck, paycheck. Okay? So that is key right there, is you didn't use a regular check, you used a paycheck to pay for this. Okay? And of course, if for any reason that you need to edit the transaction, you can go ahead and double click right here, and you'd be able to edit the information as you want to, right? By going to the paycheck details. Okay. Another thing that you can do is, for any reason that you need to look at the pay stub information, you can always print a copy, right? You go to File, Print Forms, okay? And then you can print pay stubs at any given time. So here I could go ahead and take a look at my pay stubs, and let's go ahead and preview them. So here they are. Here is Katie's pay stub information. Here's Mike's pay stub information. Okay, so again, you can print pay stubs at any given time. You're not obligated because an employee can ask for a copy of their pay stub information at any given time. Okay, so that's that right there. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about about editing information. So for any reason that, let's say Mike decides to tell us, hey, I'm so sorry, I forgot to tell you that one of the days that I called in sick, I only worked half a day on one of the days. And you already processed the paycheck and it's already been sent, it's already been done, right? Rule number 1, never, ever, ever void or delete a paycheck because that will mess up all of your federal income tax withholdings. All the taxes that you are meant to pay for that person, all those numbers are going to get mumble jumbled, okay? Best way to do it is to actually go through it and manually change it so it adjusts all the numbers and then just process a new paycheck. Okay? But you also have to enter in a new paycheck because we're replacing that paycheck. Okay? So in this case, right, let's take a look at Mike. So Mike decides to tell us, I'm so sorry. I didn't clock in all 80 hours. I clocked in only 74. Or in this case, no, let's do only 4 hours. I only did 76 hours instead of a full 80. Okay? So in this case, how do we edit the information? Well, Mike right here, right? Let's take a look at Mike. In this case, we wrote him check number 6070. Okay? We wrote him a check number 6070, and it was for the amount of $1142.32. Okay? That is crucial information because we would need to fill in another check in here afterwards. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and double click on his transaction here. Now, there are different ways that you can access this window, right? You can access it through the Payroll Center, but this is actually a lot more quicker. Once you get to the paycheck information, right, you can go ahead and click Paycheck Details, right? And this window will pop up, all right? Now, let me show you the other way that the book tells you to do, right? The book literally tells you to go to the Payroll Center. So I'm going to go through the Employee Center. We're going to go to Payroll Center. We're going to click on that last check that we just did, so 12/16/2019. And we're going to go down below, and then you have this edit/void paychecks. So if I click on that, then it's going to give me this window right here, and this is where I can double click the information to go ahead and modify it. So in this case, Mike, I can go ahead and double click on it, and that's where I can modify it by going to the payment information. Okay? We're never ever going to void a paycheck for any reason because once again, that will mess up all of your calculations for the federal taxes, the Social Security. All those numbers are all going to be messed up if you void a check. Okay? So in this case, how do I modify this? Well, in this case, what you're going to do is you're going to click on Paycheck Detail. Okay, so once again, you're going to get this window. Now, in this case, I'm going to say, well, he called in sick, so therefore he didn't claim all 80 hours. So in this case, I'm going to modify this and say he only did 76 hours. Now, notice this. It's going to give me an error message because in this case, right, this is a preventative measure that QuickBooks does so you don't mess up your federal information. But because if you are the person who's in charge of paying these people and you need to adjust the numbers accordingly, what do you need to do in order to bypass this? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. So in this case, I'm going to say no. So how do I fix it? I need to go down to the bottom where it says right here, lock net pay. I need to unlock that pay. And you're going to get a warning sign saying, if you unlock this pay, that means if you make changes to this paycheck, you need to make sure that you are for surely going to understand what are the circumstances, what are the consequences of being able to do and changing the paycheck information. In this case, we already know. We know exactly what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now I can go ahead and say, yes, he did only 76 hours, and that's going to change his pay to now to be $18.24 even. And now that is his net pay is now going to drop to $10.89, and that means all his information is adjusted. If you remember, the federal income tax withholdings was 13 or something like that. Now it's $291 because it's based on gross wages. So in this case, he earned less, so therefore he's going to be taxed less, right? This is the best way to do it. Now, other thing too is before you go ahead and save this, right? Once everything looks good and we click OK, now his pay stub information has been changed, right? This is what you need to do. You need to go up to the top and choose to print later. Because in this case, you're not going to allow him to take that check and take his other check that he already said. You're going to print him a new one. Okay? Now there are other reasons and things like that too where you can, for example, if you were supposed to pay them overtime, then yes, you can cut them an extra check to add to the total amounts. But again, that's the wrong way of doing it, because if federal income tax is based on a total amount of gross earnings, right? If you cut a check for someone that did 75 hours and then paid the other 5 hours separately, you're going to get two separate numbers that aren't going to match. So in this case, best rule of thumb is if you are, for any reason, whether it's an underpayment or an overpayment, you need to cut them a new check and you need to void the check. So in this case, I selected print later, okay, at the top of my window. And I'm going to go ahead and click save and close. And it says, are you sure you want to save these changes? We say yes. So then now, right? Now, Mike doesn't have a check that he can use because right now it's still pending to print. So in this case, I need to print paychecks. So in this case, I'm going to go to File Forms, Print Forms. Okay, and I'm going to print a paycheck. And now it tells me that Mike has a paycheck available to pay, and you're going to pay it, and it's going to be check number 6071. And I'm going to click OK. And in this case, I'm just going to have him do a manual signature. So I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to make this one Mike adjusted paycheck for 12, 16, 22, 19. Okay? And save. So now that that information is all rearranged and recalculated, right? Therefore, you will not have any other discrepancies. However, what you need to do here is now that Mike, right, has a new check, and let's check the payroll system, right? Now we have a gap in our checks, and what you have to do here is you're going to put in the check that you wrote out to Mike, okay? Okay, see, gives you a warning. We're going to click OK. So again, right, Mike Mizuki. In this case, we're just gonna write a random check. So in this case, we're just gonna write it to Mike, and this is gonna come out of our checking account to pay our employees. So you could choose any expense that you want to do. So salaries and salaries. What was it? Gross wages, or yeah, payroll expense, gross wages. Okay. And memo here is going to be saying void check for unadjusted amount. Right? So in this case, what was my check that I wrote out for that 60/70? It was for I think this was for like 1142, I believe. Okay, it was for a total of 1142 and 32 cents. So 1142.32. Okay. Once I have that now, since I have my check number 60/70 here, right, the one that I previously wrote for the unadjusted amount, right? What I'm going to do is this is the check I'm going to void because I don't want Mr. Mizuki here to go ahead and process this paycheck and then process the adjusted paycheck. Okay? So that's what you have to do here. Now, by doing so, right, by voiding check number 60/70, okay, it zeroes it out, but here's the thing. Since we use payroll expenses, gross wages, right? All of our numbers that we entered in for our federal taxes and everything, we didn't assign it to that. So that's exactly why we have to do it this way so we don't mess up those numbers that we calculated. Because if you void that check 60/70, you will be in trouble because all your numbers are going to be off because you have to recalculate them and you have to go back and make sure that those calculations are done correctly. Okay, so for any reason that you have to do it, but in this case, I adjusted it by going through the actual check itself, right? I printed him a new check, okay? And here now I void this check right here to say that check number 60/70 should be voided. Obviously, you're going to call the bank because you telling QuickBooks is not going to do anything. You got to call your bank and make sure that check number 60/70 is voided and that the recipient cannot, submit the check in there. Okay? So that's how we edit a paycheck. Any questions there?
No.
No.
Yes.
Do I go first, or somebody was trying to ask a question?
You could go first.
I can go first. Okay. So, before voiding the check that you did void,
Mm-hmm.
you have to create the new check that was calculated
Mm-hmm.
first. I mean, yeah, you have to make it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to enter it manually, like what you did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to follow in page 429 also. I don't know if I'm correct.
In this case, I am jumping a little off the book for this one because it tells you to do not do. But in this case, you should know how to do this, especially if you're dealing with if you're dealing with an employee. Yes. So after you adjusted the employee's paycheck, you need to create another check using the old information from that check that you gave previous. Because you need to put it in the system because in this case, right, I have check number 60/69, check number 60/71. What happened to check number 6070? Mike has it in his hands.
Yeah, I understand that.
So you have to void it in QuickBooks so then it adjusts your amount correctly.
Okay.
So you have to create it, and I use the register to just create it so that it's easier. And then once I created it for the exact amount that check number 6070 was for, I just right-clicked and voided it. So then that means Mike cannot enter in check number 6070. He can only put in check number 6071, which is the adjusted amount.
Yeah, you edited the previous check, and then after editing, you create a new check in the check register. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, you said there was a second person? Question?
I thought so too. I don't know for sure.
No.
Okay. So again, this is what happens when you have that kind of situation where you have to go back and adjust because again, dealing with your employees is one thing, but having them turn in and submit their timesheets is another thing. Okay, especially if they don't record it properly, and you expect them to record their own hours on their own schedule and their own time, you will always get discrepancies in this case, right? But if you have like a time clock or so, for example, right? If you have all your employees use QuickBooks to enter in their timesheets, then it would be so much more easier because all you do is just transfer the information because they put it into QuickBooks, right? And the HR should be able to have access to see that. Okay. Now, what if Katie decides to say, I'm so sorry, I lost my paycheck. Okay, I grabbed it, my kid threw it somewhere, I was at the store, I don't know where it is. Okay, so two dangerous things about that is number one, someone else intercepting it and cashing it in for themselves, and there are ways around that. And two is, well, that means we need to cut her a new check because she lost her check. So therefore, she needs to get paid because that's our responsibility. We can't punish her for that, saying, you lost your check, sorry. Okay? In this case, it is a part of the labor laws is that you have to you're required to pay your employees no matter what the situation is. If they worked, you have to pay them. So in this case, if Katie decides to lose her paycheck, what do you have to do? Straightforward. Okay? Very, very easy. So very similar to Mike Mizuki, except instead of actually modifying or editing the information, all you're going to do is a very simple step. So in this case, just make sure that you do remember this, that check number 6069 is no longer available, but it's still going to be for $18.20 and 97 cents. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on Katie's payroll, okay, information, right? And at the very top here, I'm just going to select make it print later. Okay? So in this, when I click OK and I click OK or save and close, now it has created Katie another check. Okay? So in this case, I don't have it available because right now it's waited to be pending to be printed. So what I gotta do now is I gotta go print the paycheck because now it's a new number. Okay, so print, not pay stub, excuse me. File, print forms, and I'm gonna do paychecks. Okay, so once again, I'm gonna click on Katie. Her now new check is gonna be for 6070, or new check is gonna be 6072. I'm gonna click OK, and maybe in this case, same thing. I'm gonna do a manual signature because she lost her paycheck. So in this case, I'm gonna write Katie check 2. Okay. And there you go. And I'm going to click OK. So now I assign a new number. It is now 6072. So then now what you need to do is you need to enter in another check. Because in this case, Katie lost her check number 6079, or I'm sorry, 6069, right? In this case, my last transaction I have here is 6068. What happened to 6069? Well, we need to void it because, again, if she lost it, anybody can intercept it. So we don't want other people to take money from our company when we have to pay for Katie. Now, if you remember here now, because we went into Katie's information and we basically reprinted the check, that means all the information in that check is more or less the same, right? Look at my checking account. It didn't change because I decided to write her another check, right? It just transferred the information over and just basically reprinted a new check. However, you'd still need to make sure that that check does get voided. Okay? All right. Yes.
So, is it our responsibility to know if she check it or not? Like she's liar or not? Or this is not our responsibility?
Well, I mean, if we void the check and write her another one,
Sorry?
if we void the check that we gave that she got and issued her another one, how is that? Why do you need to check if she's a liar or not?
Oh, but if she maybe like if somebody took it and check it, is that it's gonna be like our money, like the company money?
Yes, but we're also, because we wrote the check, we know exactly who deposited. We would
Oh,
know. We would know because that's the thing about using checks as a paper trail. We would know exactly where the money went.
oh, okay. And after this, like it's gonna be a investigation, and like they will know where is the check, and they could like take the money. But this is not our responsibility. Our responsibility just to give her the new check.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So this is pay with payroll expenses, gross wages. Okay, and it's going to be for, and then we're gonna say void check. Katie lost check. Okay. So in this case, it was for the 18/20/97. Okay. And in this case, we entered in. So now we have check number 6069. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to void it. Okay. So that way, again, it does not tap into any of the information that we put in for federal, right? Those are all intact. Okay. We're only voiding the payroll expense gross wages account. And that's it. Okay. There you go. Any questions in regards to, so now that we had 2 checks, right? One of them Katie lost, the other one we had to make an adjustment to Mike. So in this case, 6071 is Mike's new adjustment check, and then 6072 is Katie's new check. All right? So any questions in regards to paying employees, what happens if we need to edit the information, and what happens if they lose their check?
No.
Okay. Okay. So, if we follow our information along, so after we're done paying our employees, what is next? We need to pay our liabilities. Okay? There are a couple ways that you can do it. Right here, right on the home page, you can just click pay liabilities. You can go to the employees menu here and also pay liabilities. Okay? You can even go to the payroll center, right? And then click on pay liabilities tab, right? There are many ways that you can pay your liabilities. In this case, because this is a liability payment, it is very important that you go through this again. Never use write a checks window to pay for payroll liabilities, because it will flag you down, giving you an error message saying you need to use the pay liabilities function tab in the payroll center. Okay? So in this case, that's exactly where we are. We are in the payroll center under payroll liabilities. So in this case, because we scheduled it, right? We said that our payments are done every quarter, right? So in this case, the next couple ones that we have to pay here is due on the 16th. So we got 2 liabilities that we are pending to pay. And as you can see, it says it's pending for tomorrow. So how do I pay it? Well, I'm going to select one. So there you go, check mark that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click view/pay. Okay? And now you're going to get this window right here where it's another window that looks like write a checks window, but in this case, it's definitely different. And how are you going to pay? We said we're going to use the electronic federal tax payment system. Okay, so then this is it's an EFT. Okay, it's an electronic funds transfer. Okay, because we're using an electronic payroll system. So are we actually cutting a check? No, we are not cutting a check. But it does say to be printed. So in this case, you can change that and modify that to say EFT. Okay. But you are going to be paying this agency, the EFTPS, and we're just going to look here. Now, in this case, this is the amount of federal income tax withholdings. We got Medicare for the company and Medicare for the employee. So these are the ones that are currently due, and it's in a grand total of the amount of right here of $2,538.52. So again, that's just our responsibility for that. Okay. All right. Here you have 2 tabs. You got expenses and you got payroll liability. So in this case, this one is very specific. So in this case, that's who I'm going to cut the check out. It automatically filled in for me. All I got to ensure is it coming out of my checking account? Yes, it is. Okay. I have it to be status to be printed later. That's okay. We can always modify that to put in EFTPS. Okay. Once everything looks good, all I got to do is save and close. And that's it. Boom. Now it's pending to be having a signature on there and so on and so forth. Okay. Pending for a signature, pending to be printed, or things like that. But in this case, you don't need a signature for an electronic funds transfer. Okay, so I can even go to my check register once again. So let me go to my home page. Okay, and I go to my checking register. And watch this. Now notice this. It's actually going to tell me that I paid a tax liability. Okay, so in this case, oh, I forgot to put the date, huh? Tax liability should say tax liabilities. Okay, liability check for the employment department. So again, the EFTPS right here, liability check. Okay, there you go. Okay, so again, please use the EFTPS, or in this case right here, that's what I was looking for. EFTPS for the December 16. Right here, it's a liability check, not a regular check, not a paycheck. It is a liability check. So it's very important that you do use that window to pay for your things like that. Okay. And it says still to be printed. You could put EFT here. Okay. So again, for the $2,538. Okay. So that's how you make it. So that's how you pay your liabilities. It's simple and easy like that. Okay. Now your book also tells you how do you adjust your liabilities. Well, in this case, so let's say the next one I need to actually adjust the numbers accordingly, right? Okay, so I need to pay my liability. So in this case, I go here. I'm actually going to go down below and I need to change payment methods, or I can actually edit, adjust liabilities, right? So I click on this, and what you're going to do is you're going to adjust it for any inaccurate measures. So in this case, if your payment to the EDD is supposed to be smaller, then you can adjust the amounts accordingly. So that's only necessarily if, again, you're not keeping a really good track system, or if you accidentally voided a paycheck when you shouldn't be doing that, because again, it's going to mess up your numbers, and you can adjust your liabilities at any given time by clicking on the liability that you're trying to pay and then clicking edit or adjust right here. Okay. But in this case, everything looks good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and click that I'm going to make the payment to this one once again. I click view and pay. This time I'm paying the employment development department. So in this case, everything looks good. It's going to be for December 16, right? That's the payment date. So here I'm making a payment to California withholdings and California disability. So there you go. Okay. So now, once everything looks good, I'm going to go ahead and save and close. And there you go. I wrote my other check. So then the next check that I have to pay is going to be for March. Okay, because it's every quarter. Okay. In this case, well, it's in January. Oh, because there's different payments for different. So I'm going to have to pay Social Security next time. Okay. Any other questions? So again, when you have a payroll system, right, it makes it that much easier to process everything for you automatically with no, you don't have to calculate or anything like that. Okay? Any questions?
No. I'm just gonna walk out for a bit.
Okay, because we're just about to go on break right now. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So right now it is 9:47. So I'm gonna round that to 9:50. Okay. So go ahead and take your 15-minute break.